what do you think about, I guess, the very sudden explosive uh, popularity of the tagelharpa? Is that weird to you at all?
Yes, it's a little weird, but I know why.
Hmm.
It's this Vardruna and Vikings and so on. I have had some contact with Einar Selvik
Hmm.
in Vardruna, and he said that Hedningar was a big inspiration for him.
Before we get into the interview today, I feel like a more detailed introduction is in order. For those of you familiar with Hedningarna, an introduction isn't really needed, but as I mentioned in the interview, Hedningarna is one of those bands where the influence in today's dark folk music style is palpable, but so many of the younger international listeners might not be aware of just how much of the style's sound and contemporary ideas of Nordic folk music is owed to the lasting influence of this band. In other words, a lot of people know what Hedningarna sounds like without knowing that that comes from Hedningarna, if that makes any sense. As a prime example, take the popularity of Witcher style music today. Despite its Slavic associations, how many listening right now are aware that it was with Hedningarna that this iconic Witcher sound came to be, with their Vagtimen track used for the second game's trailer, opposed to the more traditional fantasy scoring of the game's first soundtrack. With all this in mind, I really just want to stress how special it is that Anders took the time to come onto the channel to talk about this band, adding a crucial, monumental piece to this tapestry that tells the story of the Nordic sound. At risk of overstating my point, I really hope that you take some time to dive into Hedningarna's discography if you haven't already, and you will find just how much of their sound continues to influence the dark folk today that you know and love. So, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Nordic Sound. As always, I am your host, Jamison Foster, ethnomusicologist at CU Boulder, and today I am honored to introduce you all to Mr. Anders Norudde of the legendary Hedningarna. Hedningarna is a band that comes up in conversation quite often here on the Nordic Sound as influential to many of our favorite musicians in the folk or even the Viking music scenes. Along with other 90s bands such as Garmana, Vesen, and Vertena, Hedningarna was quite influential in bringing a new attitude to Nordic folk music, so I figured it was high time we brought Anders on to tell us his own perspective on Hedningarna's story, but also about his own work as a luthier and his upbringing as a musician as well. Anders, it is great to finally talk to you. Thank you for coming on the podcast. How are you doing today?
It's very good.
Awesome. You just recently had a gig, a performance?
Yes, this weekend I have a gig with a old woman called, his name is Merit Hemmingsson.
Hmm. And did I read that that was primarily a jazz gig?
Yes, she play Hammond organ and
Awesome.
have done that in 60 years.
How did
She
that
is
feel?
he is 85 now, and she was very famous in the beginning of the 70s.
Hmm.
Make records and uh, and she play Swedish folk music and at the Hammond organ.
That is that's pretty groundbreaking, or at least a little provocative, yeah?
He was one of the first people in Sweden who make Swedish folk music in a new way
Hmm.
in the late 60s.
Yeah, would you say that that was influential for you?
Not when I was young.
Hmm.
There was when I started to play. I started to play guitar and electric guitar when I was 15, 16, 17, and played blues and rock and roll and so on.
Gotcha. So where did the folk music come in then?
I heard a tune, a song on the radio, and that was the band Kebnekaise, who
Okay.
was very early in the Swedish folk rock scene. They were first.
Hmm.
And they play a tune called Barkbrödslåten, and I feel that, oh, what a strong melody. And I play this tune at my electric guitar and listen more at this band. And next week I I fetched my grandfather's violin and began to play directly this tune.
Okay. So do you come from a folk music family if he just had a violin lying around, or is that just
uh,
normal to
my
have?
my grandfather played violin when he was young, and my father was in this brass orchestra at home here, a little town, and there was a lot of choir singing and so on around me. But I don't like it. I want to play electric guitar when I was 15.
Yeah. What kind of bands were you listening to, like rock bands and stuff like that?
Uh, Blues, Delta blues, and Status Quo
Awesome. Any
from from England.
so cool. Any Delta guitarists in
You see
particular?
here, behind me, Status Quo.
Oh, yep. This is making a lot of sense for me, seeing that you come from this Delta blues side, and then you eventually meet with this folk music side. How old were you when you first started playing the violin?
18, 19.
Hmm.
And I am self-educated or learned of everything what I play.
Hmm.
And when I start to buy records and read books about Swedish folk music, I see that there was a lot of folk, different instruments too.
Hmm.
So I make my first co-horn and willow flutes, and when I was 20, and I was 20 even when I make my first tagelharpa.
That is
But
so cool.
of masonite and the whole thing, and
Hmm.
bad wood, and paint it blue.
Was it normal at that time to build and play toggle harpas?
No, no, no. A man, his name was Styrbjörn Bergelt. He released a record 1980, and he play. He have we have met people who could play tagelharpa, and he was a very good musician at tagelharpa and this overtone flute, and that was a big inspiration for me.
Yeah, because I had Lassi Logren on the podcast a few months ago,
Yes,
and he said the same. When he picked up the Yohiko toggle harpa when he was a teenager, it was a weird instrument to be playing. Not exactly everyone was rushing for Yohiko lessons or to buy one.
yeah.
So how did you learn how to make them at that time if not so many people were doing them? Was it just through these books?
Uh, yes, yeah. I have some books and some plans I make from, and I was used to make things by myself.
Hmm.
I made my own first boxes and when I was teenager and play electric guitar. So I have the electronic things already. I know everything about it. And yes, and after a while I played and played and was out to the spelmansstämma and meet other fiddlers and so on, and go some gone some course to play horn and bagpipe. 81, I find the bagpipe, Swedish bagpipe, at this fiddler meeting.
That is, so you were very much drawn to a lot of different types of instruments rather than being just a fiddler or just a guitar player. It seems like you were very much drawn to just the diverse amount of different traditional instruments.
Yes, I love the sound.
Hmm.
Oh, I love the drone.
Oh, so you're a fan of the drones.
Yes,
Yeah, you know,
and
that's making a lot of sense.
yeah, and the strong melody, the the sound from the instruments I love.
Mhm.
I played a lot of fiddle too, but in the 1982, I what do you say? I started to go education for violin making. But when I moved to Leksand in Dalarna in Sweden and start this education for violin making, it and I can there I learned to use the tools and handle the wood. And after 4 years, I was fully educated violin maker. And under the time, I play very much in the evenings and so on, and go to the workshop and make some other instrument. And yeah, yeah. My friends make only violin, but I make some other instruments too.
So you were unique in that way, or were a lot of people drawn to the weirder instruments?
Yes, what do you say? So, if you have a bad violin, my friend said this violin sounds like a tagelharpa, and I was both words,
Hmm.
drone and music and classical violin making.
Hmm. That is so cool. So when
Yeah,
you were playing the violin, were you primarily learning Dalarna tunes, or were you learning
I,
melodies from all
I
over?
more of my own from my own area, Värmland, and
Ah.
the western part of Dalarna.
Hmm.
There was more. What do you say? You can put it on more drones. Put on more drones on these tunes. I don't know how to say. I don't know how to tell it, but after that, when I have finished this education, after a half a year after that, I met two guys, Björn and Totte, and I already have my instrumentarium, my instruments, what I play on, and Totte have his Renaissance lute, a Baroque lute, and Björn have his percussions, different things, and our instruments fall in love with each other.
That is awesome. So this is where Hedningarna comes into play?
Yes, and we were on the what do you say, folkhögskola. We met.
Folk high school, yeah.
Yeah, we have the spring '87, and a man from a theater searched for special folk music, and we send the tapes to him, and he loved our music when they played at the folk high school. And we been theater musicians at once from summer '87, and it is for a very special performance about histories from the north of Sweden. And we have the spring '88. We have full time paid for for our music and make music for this theater play, who was 6 hours.
So Hedningarna really starts as a play band, as like a theater band?
Yeah, theater musicians.
I never would have guessed. I did not know that, but that is Yeah, that's amazing.
And you can see it on YouTube. YouTube. It's the name is Den Stora Vreden. It's only bad. What you say? VHS videos, but
Mhm.
you can see it in 6 hours and listen at our music.
That is so cool. So before, but you said that you had tapes before the play. Did the tapes sound the same, have the same style that your first album had, or was that
Yes,
much more traditional?
yes, something around that. We have our tunes we like. Totte in the band who played the Renaissance lute, he is from Mora in Dalarna, and he gave the group tunes from Mora, his home area. And I composed a lot of tunes too. I made a lot of tunes in the 80s, perhaps the best tunes I made this in this time. And when we have it was ready with the theater 88, we make this first album, the Blue album, and it was the best tunes of this theater play, we can say.
What was your biggest influence, I guess? Because the way that you guys were doing folk music was, at least from my perspective, as someone who reads about others' opinions from the time, I find that what you guys were doing was quite different. So I'm interested in sort of what I already have a feeling drones are going to be a big part of the answer. But what other sorts of stylistic or styles influenced the way that you guys approached this very unique kind of folk music?
Uh, I had my idols, especially from Hardanger fiddle music from Norway, and I had already done made two Hardanger fiddles in the 80s, and I used one of them. And I used a lot of gut strings, and it was important to have a very good sound. And gut strings I used already at my Mora harpa and Takele harpa and so on. So this you can hear this on this first album. You hear this, what do you say, overtones from the gut strings. This was very important for me this time. And if you go back to the theater, it was in the big. It would look like a big cellar, and it was very wet, and it was very hard to use gut strings this time.
Yeah, they are not the most cooperative of
No,
strings.
but when they are in tune, it's wonderful.
I agree completely.
Some 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 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah, for that brief moment they're in tune, it's beautiful.
Yes.
So the percussion element of the first
Yeah.
album, is that just because he was a drummer, or like where did that idea come from? Because whenever I listen to that album, that's always that's where so much of its charm comes from, is the addition of
Yes.
percussion to this otherwise Swedish folk sound.
Björn was inspired, what you say, inspired
Inspired? Yep.
inspired from a Turkish percussionist. He have a very simple tambourine with the skin very loose, and he can what do you say, push put push on it and make different notes. Dun, 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 smack, boom, 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 smack, and they have a little microphone in the inside. So he used it like a music instrument too, and perhaps he was the first man who do it in this way, and now it's spread over the world.
Yeah, and that's why, Hedningarna is so interesting to me, is because of just how much of your influence, just like Wesen, or Garmana. Like I
Yeah.
hear so much of the styles of these different '90s bands that are still being played with even
Yes.
musicians my age, and a lot of them don't. A lot of the musicians my age don't even realize that what they are doing is very much inspired. Like you can trace it back to what Hedningarna was doing,
Yeah.
which is it's just so fascinating to me because what I love about that use of the drum is it also sounds like a an Indian tabla to me, you know, the boom
Yes.
boom.
Yes.
Uh, and I have a friend who plays tabla here in Boulder, Colorado, and
Yeah.
I showed him, you know, this album, and you know, he was the first to tell me that's not a tabla, but it sounds very similar, right?
Yes.
And that is just, I'm wondering how other folk musicians felt about it at the time.
I don't remember. I don't care.
That is a
We do
beautiful
our
answer.
things. We done our things 100%, and if some hate it, it's well. And we developed other instruments too.
Hmm.
Björn, he used this string drum too. Boom, 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 boom.
Hmm.
And that's came from, we have this instrument, Mora harpa.
Hmm.
I used four of them in this time with different tunings from a normal one, bass one, and discount, yeah, different tunings of them.
Hmm.
And I take the bow and hit the strings dong, 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 on the bass Mora harpa. And we said we have to make a new instrument, so we can use this instrument in our concerts. And I have a hurdy-gurdy when I made 1985, and I take away this what do you say, tangent system,
Hmm.
and uh, and have only the drones left,
Hmm.
and make make it longer with planks, and put on four long gut strings, and we have this new instrument, string drum hurdy-gurdy, in one instrument. And we have this. You have in the hurdy-gurdy, you have this drone and this
Hmm.
knarr there, boom, 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 and in the left hand you use boom, 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 boom. When they can hear it in the instrument, at the albums too. And in 1990, I make a new one, a bigger one, but now it's yeah, we don't use it. No, I don't use it now. It's history.
So it seems like you're the secret weapon with all of these instruments that you keep making. You just keep broadening the sound of Hedningarna just
Yeah,
because you're kind of like this mad scientist, but with old with old folk instruments.
yeah. And I made another instrument here. It's for example, this uh, very big bass willow flute, overtone flute. And when we get more gigs and so on, and we were only three people.
Hmm.
Björn and Totte, they work with the sampling. They learn to make samplings, and bought machines for that.
Hmm.
So we sampled ourselves to get the fourth member in the group. So Björn, when he play, for example, when he play the tambourine at the foot, we have a pad. He play
Hmm.
boom, boom, boom at the same time when we play live.
We will talk a little bit more in a little bit about the bands and musicians today that very much are inspired by the sound of Hedningarna.
Yes,
But at the time when I'm reading about how people talked about your music in the '90s and in the early 2000s, a lot of people listen to your music and hear something old, very old, and this is shows up in reviews, in books, in articles, anything written about you guys is the idea that Hedningarna evokes something ancient, right? And I've always been curious if that was your intention or if that was just an interesting way that people interpreted your music that maybe you didn't expect. So maybe if I can ask the question more directly, when you guys are making your music or were making your music, was there an intention to evoke something old and
Yes,
mysterious?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. We have same time we have a historical interest of
Mhm.
things, and I have grown up with for example, my grandmother's brother who lives in like in the he lives like in the 1800s.
Mhm.
I have experienced the smells. I experienced the forests. I experienced the meadows and the houses. So I have it in my back of the head and heart, how the 1800s smell and I was I'm not in I was not yeah what to say. I love the forest too,
Mhm.
and find the old parts of it. And yeah, skulle say a mix of history and the old instruments and the sound from the instruments.
Mhm.
And that's from that it sounds like it sounds. And when we make this CD album, Kaxi 892, the the what to say, the record man, what to say,
Producer,
the
engineer.
producer,
Yep.
yeah, engineer, he was the fourth member, and we without him it not have sounds like it have sounds like in the CDs. He was trollkarl, which to collect what we want.
Mhm.
And Totte, he who play he who played the Renaissance lute, and he
Mhm.
began to play hurdy-gurdy too after a while. He he, uh, he was the boss, you can say, in the group.
Mhm.
He had big visions and think very symphonic.
Mhm.
So we had to fill all the 40 channels on this 2-inch tape this time, and from these 40 channels was full of things. You can hear the
Mhm.
song.
Yeah, so I love to hear that your influence is very much the forest, I guess, because to me, that's something that is also what inspires the music that I make, or I also have a very close love of forests, right?
Yeah.
And that is something that is always, and it's funny to hear that this isn't a coincidence, but that's what's always drawn me to your music is that it always has this sound of a forest or something like that.
Mm.
Um, and so if you are intentionally, making this music to evoke this to bring out this kind of idea or setting, um, what was this music doing for you then, if that makes any sense? Was this music as a way for you to express that kind of I know Scandinavians don't love the word nostalgia. But was the music there to sort of help you maybe experience these sorts of things that you loved, or maybe, I don't know, as a kind of escapism, or was it? I don't know. I'm interested in what this music did for you as a way of you expressing these things that you love, if that makes any sense.
What I say before, I have my uh, idols. What you say more in this? I listen at things, and I make my own own thing of all I have heard and all I have practiced, and yes, it's a way to express yourself. The music. I don't think about nostalgia and so on. It's good music. I have to play, and we have to play together in this group.
Hmm.
Well, this group Hedningarna, it was three in the beginning, and we had we been four or two, and another people. Perhaps it could bring another music, but
Hmm.
we three, Björn, Totta, and me, is exploded.
Yeah.
It exploded. It was very good.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Anders, this is all fascinating about everything from starting with a theater production to the desire to express forests and old things and all of that. This is fascinating.
I don't think at forest when I play.
Yep.
I think at the tune and
Hmm. Yeah.
express and do very good music. And this note is very important. Just to express yourself.
Yeah, beautifully said. So from there, hearing your story of where this comes from, um, by the time you guys get to your third album, Trea, it's
Yeah,
it's a little different from where you guys
yeah.
started. A lot more edgy, a lot more rock attitude, or in your case, it would be Delta blues. Where did the where did the idea or the inspiration come to? Was that also just it just came naturally as a part of expressing yourselves, or because that's your most? I think that's your most influential album. That's your, at least that's the one that is listened to the most. So how
Yes.
did that album sort of come to be, especially with the addition of the new voices?
At first, the girls from Finland,
Hmm.
they was on the Kaxi first,
Hmm. Right.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
Totte find them in Finland, and before that we talk about could we find some voices to our music. We didn't find it, but he find it in Finland, and they come to us and we try, and it's fit very good together.
Hmm.
And yes, we have these 40 tunes before Kaxi, and perhaps it was only 10, 15 in the result was.
Hmm.
And the same was in the when you start to do the trä, 40, 50 tunes. Whoa, and we sort it out, and at least the trä album was these tunes we had to record.
Yeah.
And Björn and Totten, our sound engineer, they worked more about this. They learned more of each other,
Hmm.
and we have new ideas and new tunes who have to be as good as possible. A lot of drones, yes, everything, and yeah, the tunes depend what's happened. We
Hmm.
don't say no. We're gonna make this type of album and so on. What was these tunes to make it helhet, the whole
Hmm.
what do you say in English? Helhet.
It's complete, or
Yeah, just some complete thing.
mhm.
This tune make the Trä album.
Did it organically come about to be more aggressive or edgy, or was that like, because you can kind of hear that your music gets more edgy as these three albums go on, and I was just wondering if that was just because you guys got bored maybe doing just straight acoustic music so often and you wanted to do something new.
It was acoustic all time,
Yep. Hmm.
but the tunes decide what was happened. This some tune decide, and we feel that you can go in this direction, and you have to have a new instrument with new strings and tunings. Yes, the instruments have to fit one tune perhaps, and we have to bring this instrument at tours, one
Hmm.
instrument and because it was very important to have this sound
Hmm.
in different, perhaps one tune. It's hard to explain.
No, that was so. I thought that was a great answer because what I'm hearing is a very folk musician kind of answer that you're very it's very important to you that the tune decides where something goes. And I find that that is an idea that is really shared amongst folk musicians is that and you can tell me what your perspective is on this, but I very often hear folk musicians talk about how the tune is in charge, and I am here to simply be to translate the tune for you, or to simply perform this tune that has this higher power. Do you very much subscribe or believe that the tune itself is sort of this power that decides where the music goes?
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes when I hear a tune, only melody, uh, I feel where my body is outside somewhere. Perhaps only a simple melody without accompaniment, and oh, what was the question?
No, no. So you started talking about how you do believe that the melody or the tune itself
Yeah,
is what decides where something will
yeah,
go. Yeah, you kind of release control. You let the tune decide.
yeah.
Yep.
And this and it, I have one tune,
Hmm.
and I try this tune at lot of instruments, and this perhaps I find the instrument who fit very good to 100%, and we have to go from that. And the bagpipe, for example, the Swedish bagpipes have only one octave,
Hmm.
eight notes. And when we play these drone instruments, the, the songs and the tunes perhaps is very not so many notes,
Hmm.
and you have to do your best between this up and down notes.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a big part of just the sound of Hedningarna, which is so funny. It's so funny to me that it's something so simple that I never would have considered is that it's so much of it has to do with your love of drones.
Yeah,
I play the banjo and I recently started learning how to play the tagelharpa and I have always loved the drone of clawhammer banjo. Those drones are always what really makes music sing to me, and I can't explain it really what it is. I share your love of drones.
yes, it's the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, very well said.
yeah,
So so let's talk about the influence of Hedningarna. And I'm going to repeat what I said earlier that something that I hear in a lot of today's it's a genre called dark folk. Is it, you know, the idea of folk music that's just a little darker? That bands like yourselves and Garmana and Vertana have indirectly inspired by you know, take Vardruna for example.
yes,
I know that these musicians, right, are very familiar with your music. But the Americans or the international audience that then listens to Vardruna doesn't know where that sound really comes from. So what ends up happening is people who are listening to bands like Vardruna are hearing a lot of music inspired by you guys without knowing who you guys are. So that is something that's very fascinating to me. Is the influence that you guys have had through other bands and other musicians as well. And I guess if I can start this with a more directed question, is, you know, how familiar are you with the music that is being made nowadays with the toggle harpas and the hurdy-gurdies and all of this esoteric Viking stuff? You know, how familiar are you with all of that?
very little.
Very little.
I don't listen to music at all.
Yeah, so but does it interest you at all that the Tagelharpa in particular, considering how I guess yeah, so if you're not too familiar with the music itself, what do you think about I guess the very sudden explosive uh popularity of the Tagelharpa? Is that weird to you at all?
Yes, it's a little weird, but I know why.
Hmm.
It's this Vardruna and Vikings and so on.
Hmm.
I know. I have had some contact with Einar Selvik
Hmm.
in Vardruna, and he said that Hedningarna was a big inspiration for him.
Hmm.
I made two instruments for him too.
Oh, you did?
Yes,
I didn't know that.
I don't. I made a tagelharpa, but he don't use it at stage.
Hmm.
And I made a bockhorn
Ah, yeah.
for him too. I don't know if he use it. I don't care.
Okay. Do you find it interesting though that this music that you don't feel drawn to at all is so heavily inspired by what you guys did 30 years ago?
Today I'm only listening at very old traditional folk music
Hmm.
that give me inspiration, and that have given me inspiration all the time.
Hmm.
And perhaps when I performed it, it sounds very old
Hmm.
in different old instruments.
Hmm.
And it's very simple. I play my music, and today I have no time to listen at this other Viking and so on music.
Hmm. So you're spending most of your time playing.
No, I make violins and instruments.
Hmm.
that's my that's my full time work. But I play when a gig come
Hmm.
some days before I had to rehearsal.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Yes.
If there was anything more that you wanted to say about Hedningarna, yeah.
Yeah, we 1997 we make this hip hop
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
instrumental album with a Samic man, Vimesari with Joik
Hmm.
and so on. This album was a kind of acoustic techno music. We were we had to do something new every time when we had make records. We had to do some new thing that people don't have heard before.
Hmm.
And every tune we make and released was had to be something new. We it was very important for us.
Yeah, and that's something I notice when I'm listening through your discography. I
Yeah.
do. I listen to Hedningarna a lot. It is you guys are one of my favorite bands, and at least once a week, one of your albums plays on my CD player. And something that I have really come to appreciate about you guys is this idea that all of your albums you don't know what's going to happen next. You know, where is the sound going to go? Where is the style going to go? And so that's very much planned or decided by you guys that you really feel it's important to do something new every time.
Yeah. It
Hmm.
was in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yes, and the girls were changing. We
Hmm.
have all four girls we had in this time until 2003,
Hmm.
and the drummer was left the band 2000,
Hmm.
and it was only Todd and me left until 2014,
Hmm.
and another friends enjoy our band, and yes, we were touring a lot. 99 we make the last CD with Björn Tolin,
Hmm.
and it's perhaps this Karelia Visa was a way to go back a little,
Hmm.
or I, 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 my, I thought in this time, but now we had to go do something more acoustic again
Hmm.
with this album from '99. And yes, it's hard to to talk about the album. I have all the tunes in here.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can talk about one tune, one tune, one tune, one tune. Don't the whole album. It's only a bit of plastic or paper. You see it.
Just spoken like a true folk musician. I love it.
Yeah.
So, so when we're looking at Hedningarna's whole discography, um, over the years, you guys have earned a reputation as one of the most audacious, or I'll use the word edgy again, um, bands in folk music. And do you have maybe an opinion on the importance of disrupting uh, folk music in a productive way?
But what is disrupting?
So disrupting meaning that so folk music circles can be very conservative, not in the political sense that we think about it today, but in the idea that change can be scary in a way, right? And here comes this band, Hedningarna, who really makes a lot of changes, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it's ended up, and just like Vessen and just like Garmana and Huvendruven and Vertena, you guys end up bringing this new attitude to folk music that really does sort of flip the chessboard, so to speak. And I was wondering if you had any opinions on how that kind of disruption of bringing new ideas into folk music, which can be a little hesitant of new ideas, how that could be good for folk music overall.
At first, I had to say it's a mixed with this very to play the tune at exactly,
Hmm.
and perhaps you have find the tune in the sheet music.
Hmm.
Would say old sheet music, handwritten and so on.
Hmm.
And sometimes you have learned it from a fiddler or from from an album or so on.
Hmm.
And in Hovendroven, you find Kjell-Erik Eriksson.
Hmm.
He's very traditionally too,
Hmm.
and and I'm too. I love to search after local music from this area,
Hmm.
old folk. And I have a friend who have perhaps 300 tunes in his head from this area. I learned from him.
Hmm.
He teach me some tunes sometimes, and there is always the mix, the
Hmm.
very traditionally, and you can use this tune in another way too.
Hmm.
And perhaps in the group, some groups like Hovendroven and Hedningarna. And in Garmarna, you have this singer, Emma Herdelin. She is
Hmm.
very traditionally singer too. And yes, you know what you do. And today there are not so much of this. You say you play wrong, you play wrong, you play wrong. I am a police. That you can't find it today.
Hmm.
It's not so in that way, because you have to, vad heter det, självförtroende, self. I know what I do,
Hmm.
and I know what I can serve you in different ways.
Hmm. Do you think that what you guys did in the 90s sort of allowed that to happen? Because at least from my point of view, I think that all of these bands we're talking about are pretty important in that opening up and the lack of, I don't want to say lack of policing, but at least I guess the more open idea that you can do more creative individual ideas with these tunes than maybe in the 70s.
Yeah, it was more policemen, folk music policemen in the 70s.
Yeah, yeah.
Because this way to do the music was very sällsynt, rare.
Mhm.
Yeah, perhaps 2-3 bands do it in the 70s. I talk about early this band Kebnekaise, for
Mhm.
example. But these bands and some perhaps we yeah, many who have loved to hear it, and they began to play because they have heard this band.
Yep. And that is
It's
very much still what we see today,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
that's why the conversation went towards
yeah.
Vardruna, is because this incredibly popular style of Nordic.
But they don't play tunes from Norway, so
Right.
perhaps
Yep,
they they
exactly.
they do other their own way tunes,
Hmm.
who sounds very archaic and so on.
Yeah, yeah, because it is interesting because that's why I mentioned earlier that I see them doing the same thing that you guys did in the 90s, where you
Yeah,
sort of open up and create more breathing
yeah,
room. But you're right. The thing with bands like Vardruna is it's actually not so much about the tunes, right? Which is funny because that's what we were talking about so much.
yeah,
It's more about using styles that are reminiscent, that make you think of,
yeah.
what traditional Norwegian music sounds like without actually using the folk music. And
Yes,
that's such a new way of looking at it. Yeah?
and perhaps some perhaps you been inspired of Vardruna
Hmm.
and want to have a tagelharpa.
Yeah.
I know I can play tagelharpa because I know the sound,
Yeah.
but I don't know the tune some tunes.
Yep. So yeah, so we're hitting the time here, but Anders, wanted to say, before we just close off talking a little bit more about instrument making, I just
Yeah,
wanted to just thank you one more time for taking us through this history of this very influential band. The music you guys did is incredible, and I hope that other people start listening to it some more just from hearing you talk about it. It's been really special to hear you tell your own perspective on Hedningarna.
with my bad English.
Oh, oh, don't you worry about a thing. It's understood that, it's going to be a bilingual type thing when people listen to Nordic musicians like yourselves talk about themselves. Let's say that someone wants to learn how to make instruments. Let's say that someone wants to make a tagelharpa or a lyre or something.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to young instrument makers who maybe
Uh,
don't know where to go?
uh, there are a man in Finland, Rauno Nieminen,
Hmm.
the the big one who have make tagelharpa since 70s.
Hmm.
He have good plans to sell to them, and you can experiment it in different ways if you want. It's not wrong, but if you want to make a good tagelharpa, he have the solution.
I had a more specific question, and that is, do you have a particular favorite instrument that you have made over the time? Or maybe, if not a favorite, do you have a weirdest instrument that you've made?
I made today. I finished with an instrument of 5-stringed viola.
Mhm. Oh, I saw that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm very proud of this instrument.
You should be. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I'm ordinary a violin maker. I make
Hmm.
different kinds of violins, and sometimes I made a tagelharpa,
Hmm.
and sometimes once a year, perhaps säljflöjt. And yes, you have see here lot of my own.
Your menagerie.
Yes, and it's in periods. I make tagelharpa, for example.
Hmm.
Now I in fully in the violin making, and
Hmm.
but I have 2 orders I have to make tagelharpa.
Awesome.
sometime.
So is the five-string viola you just made, would that be your favorite or your weirdest?
Uh, Favorite.
Yeah, cool.
I wear this. Here we have a weird instrument.
What the hell? Is that a washboard?
Wash. What do you call it when you wash?
Yeah, washboard. Yeah, yeah.
And here with a tagelharpa with this pickup from crank.
Hmm. Record player, yeah.
Yeah. Here is this tagelharpa with inbuilt uh,
A little Marshall amp just for...
Marshall stack. Yeah. I have this banana here too.
Okay.
Tagelharpa with sympathetic strings.
Yeah, look at that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is that what you spend your weekends doing? Like, is that your off time instrument making?
Yes. Sometimes. But now they are only hanging on the wall.
Well, they look beautiful even on the wall.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Anders, again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. The reason I started this podcast was so um, people from around the world could have a place to come to learn more about Nordic musicians with the the growing popularity of Nordic music. And so it really has been an honor to have you join this podcast and lend your own voice and your own perspective to the podcast and telling the story of Nordic music for those who want to learn it. Um, Seriously, it really means a lot to me for you to come and talk to some weird guy from Colorado for an hour about your music.
Mhm.
So, if people want to buy or maybe even look at your instruments that you've made, where should they go to find your work?
I have no home site. I have
Okay,
only social media.
so you would invite people to find you on social media, Anders Norudde, and find you and look at your work there.
Yeah, Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, you're very active on Facebook. I love keeping up with all the instruments that you post. It's a lot of fun.
It's too much.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Anders, you please take care. Just stay on the phone just for 1 second after I stop the recording. But
Yeah.
otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful day and thank you so much for coming on to the Nordic Sound. It's very much appreciated.
Yes.